Hey all! Thank you for joining us for this month's ALI Talks. Each month, we get together to learn about a variety of topics related to online accessibility. So please follow us on Twitter. We are ALI Talks, that is A11yTalks, or visit our new website at alitalks.com to keep apprised of upcoming sessions, speakers, and other relevant information. You'll also get to see this and other past sessions there. Easy to find, easy to check in with us. You're welcome to subscribe to our YouTube channel to see, again, past and both upcoming talks. And with that YouTube plug, please keep in mind the session is being recorded. If you're posting questions, if you're doing all of these wonderful things, we'll get to see it after, and so won't the rest of the world. So if you have a sense of humor like mine, let's just all tuck that back in. With that, though, in all seriousness, ALI Talks seeks to provide a friendly, safe environment for all participants to be able to engage in productive dialogue. That means we want to share and learn with each other in an atmosphere of mutual respect. Therefore, we require all participants to adhere to the Drupal Code of Conduct. If you have any questions about today's session, please feel free to either put them in the chat or hashtag ALI Talks on Twitter. Let us know. We want to hear your thoughts too. This is always welcome to hear that. At the end of the presentation, I'll vocalize them to you and to our amazing presenters. So with that, we are lucky to have both Kat and Taryn joining us today, both of them coming from Lullabot. Kat got her Certified Professional of Accessibility and Core Competencies certification from the International Accessibility Association. I know I said that wrong.
It's a mouthful. You're doing good.
Yeah. A former Air Force brat with 3 children of her own. She's continuing her education with additional ALI certifications. And on top of all this other great stuff, unfortunately, she currently has an injury, which is helping her see things even more so from that user perspective. So adding new dynamics to an already incredibly dynamic woman. With that, Taryn, her muse is Sailor Moon, and she's trilingual, adding another layer of understandability and usability to accessibility, as accessibility helps for those who are a non-native language speaker. So with that, so excited to hear about how leveraging this accessibility, usability helps with speaking to and engaging with your diverse audiences. So with that, are you both ready?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Ready to go.
Then I am going to mute myself and turn off my camera, but I'm here if you have a question.
Thanks, Donna.
Thanks.
Thank you for such a lovely introduction too. And also really want to say thank you to Kat for doing this with me today. I wanted to talk about this some more, and I work with Kat at Lullabot, but not directly with her. So every so often I'll be like, hey Kat, can you tell me more about this accessibility principle? Because she's our accessibility patron at Lullabot. And so when the opportunity to talk about this came up, we wanted to do DrupalCon, but unfortunately, with everything going on, we weren't able to. But it was super exciting to be able to present this to y'all at ALI Talks today. So I'm going to share my screen, maybe. Well, the screen sharing is currently disabled, so our host could.
One moment, please.
While she gets that ready, I want to say I am very happy to speak with Taryn as well. We both started on the same day at Lullabot, and it's been a blessing to work with Taryn at Lullabot on many things, and she's a doll, so she's awesome.
I try.
You're a rock star.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. We haven't even gotten started. So,
yeah.
Please ignore all my icons at the bottom of my screen. I never close anything, but we are going to talk about leveraging ALI and UX to serve diverse audiences. So, very long title. It was even longer the last time that I did it. I listened to way too much Fall Out Boy. This is not Kat's fault. But what this means is that we're going to be discussing breaking through buzzwords and creating a foundation that benefits everyone, truly benefits everyone. So we discussed, that's me when my hair looks different and less purple. Taryn Almendarez, front-end developer. I work in the support and maintenance department. And Kat?
And I am Kat Shaw. I'm a senior front-end developer with Lullabot, and I work in client services.
Hey. So we're going to start this off with a pop quiz. I don't know if we can see questions and answers from people here right now, but to you, what is diversity? Like, let's give a little, Jeopardy 20, 30 seconds on this.
If anybody posts it in the YouTube chat, I will just hand it off to our team here.
Awesome. I think I'll open YouTube as well, just mute it, because we have a couple other little interactive things. So typically, diversity and inclusion in tech is presented as building products that include marginalized people, like based on group membership. I moved my notes. Don't look at all my open tabs. It's so embarrassing. Why did I do this right now? We're good. Presenter's notes. But it's often presented as building products based on people's group membership. So often when you see people do diversity things, they're like, let's make our website more diverse. Is anyone familiar with like these kind of pictures? Kat, have you seen some of those kind of pictures in your time in government?
Oh, yes. I've seen those quite a bit.
What about this one? We had a couple of these on our website on the local level.
Yeah. Yep. It's always good to have as many beautiful colors as possible.
Beautiful colors, smiling, happy people, all different kinds of genders. Like this is kind of where a lot of organizations stop though. So in our talk, we are going to go beyond surface fluff. Instead of us giving lip service to diversity, we are going to discuss what are actionable steps that we can take to build products that foster inclusion. It's one thing to have a bunch of people of different backgrounds come together. It's a whole other to build an inclusive space for them. So our topics in this talk: diversity in theory versus diversity in practice. And we will go into that a little bit more later. I'm going to dim down this light that's blaring on my face. Sharing ways that we worked up in achieving our goals, trying to keep it PG-13. I was also a fan of The Good Place, the TV show, but also The Other Good Place. It would be nice. Sharing things that have worked for us and processes that you can change to improve your website experience, as well as tools that you can use to achieve better results for your audiences. Now, diversity in theory versus diversity in practice. So like I said, usually like when we're just kind of talking about basic diversity, you see things like this picture. Or a different example is going to be this picture. Kat, do you remember this one?
I actually don't remember that picture.
Okay.
But yeah, go ahead.
No worries. It's like burned into my head. So this is an example, and this is like non-political. This is just an example of, a way that people try to do outreach to people who are in different marginalized groups. This one in particular was around 2015, 2016, used in the Hillary Clinton campaign. So this is supposed to be representative of the Kwanzaa Kinara. You can think of the Kwanzaa Kinara, it's like it holds candles that there are 7 of them, and they stand for different principles. Kwanzaa 7 days, and there's 3 red ones, 1 black one, and 3 green ones. I personally celebrate Kwanzaa. Kat, do you celebrate Kwanzaa?
No, I actually don't.
Yeah, and so it was a nice gesture, but Black Twitter like exploded. Like, what is this? Like, why are we doing these performative things? Can we talk about policy? Can we address like the things that are important to us as a group? I do think that the campaign improved their messaging after that, but these are ways that people try to kind of do things more surfacey. They're usually gestural attempts of being inclusive. They aren't usually very representative of the issues that people face in their day-to-day lives. Now, with diversity in theory, it kind of doesn't address people's realities and their day-to-day needs. I tried to find the talk that I went to a couple of years ago. It was really great. It was at the Big Design Conference in Dallas, I think. But there was a website that had tools and resources for people with diabetes. And this is going to get to pictures, but this is about ways that pictures do actually have impact. Wonderful website, but a lot of the images on the site were of like this really fit, like athletic looking white guy. And when you have like type 2 diabetes in the United States, there are groups that this disproportionately impacts. And there was a group that the people that made this product were specifically trying to reach out to. They were people who were overweight, Black people, and Latino, Latinx people. And one of the audiences that they missed with these images just of this one person is that lots of people that were coming to the site were family members who were seeking information on behalf of that parent. So the company actually ended up changing their branding, and they saw the adoption of the tools improve, like much more interaction, because they thought about, who are the people that we're actually trying to serve and what is it that they actually need. Kat, I keep lobbing questions at you. Have you ever been directed to go to a website to do something like on a phone and you've gotten like a shoddy mobile experience from it?
Oh yeah, it's happened multiple times. Local government would be a good example, or a credit union that I belong to that has a really terrible experience. Yes.
Oh, you remind me of why I like switched back to a big bank from a credit union. Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, like the one that I interact with most is parking websites, right? So they say, oh, go to Park Mobile or whatever it is, and you can enter this number and you can pay on your phone. It's like, that's great. I don't want to like put my credit card into a thing that might have a skimmer. But then you try to go to the site and it's all like jank and looking. When you go to a website like that doesn't serve a good user experience, Kat, like, are you gonna hang around very long?
No, in fact, there's been sites where we've been interested in buying things on it, but the site has been so, like you said, janky looking. It's like, no, we're not gonna go to that because it just looks too suspicious, honestly.
Oh, that is true. That impacts user trust too.
Yeah.
Forgot about that aspect. Like for me with the Park Mobile thing, like I'll walk the distance to like go and pay, at the swipe thing instead to avoid it. But when you do theoretical diversity, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna maybe do a slightly different version of my site or my experience or product offering that I'm doing, people can feel that, like they understand that you're not really concerned about their needs, and often they'll just bounce. They'll click out, and if they if it's not a service that they do not need, like it's a necessity, they probably won't ever come back to your site, and they'll probably tell other people, hey, don't go to this site. So by us looking deeper, it allows us to more accurately identify the issues that our users are facing and the needs that they have. And Kat, I think that we should talk about how we can achieve those goals.
Yeah, thankfully there is an easy way to do that. So basing your product experiences on accessibility and UX principles helps to serve multiple groups. So developing in mobile first matters in a mobile first way. When you develop in a mobile first way, you're helping to solve problems for users with disabilities and other audiences. So mobile first results in things like faster load times, smaller images, tap and swipe gestures, and large touch targets. And all of these things work towards providing a complete user experience for all of your users.
Mm-hmm.
So these small lifts alleviate the huge disproportionate impact of issues commonly faced by people in the margins. And as I discussed earlier, ally principles help people with disabilities, and it ties directly into mobile first. So by improving the experiences of people on mobile devices and people with disabilities, you're also helping people in other marginalized groups. And examples would be the elderly, rural communities, and people in poverty.
Yeah. Okay. And so, because I am still a 14-year-old girl at heart, we are going to play a bit of a game. Going back to diversity in theory and diversity in practice, I think that it's really important for us to break our preconceived notions, especially when we're doing work like with accessibility, user experiences. That's why we do user stories, right? And especially I cannot remember the first two I listed. I don't want to repeat myself, but when we're doing this kind of work, it's important for us to break down what it is that we think, like the biases that we have, the stereotypes that we've learned, and then get down to what are people actually experiencing. The other thing is that playing games and doing productive thought exercises is a great way to do it, and it's actually one of the best ways for people to acquire new knowledge and skills. You can also use this as a mental exploration tool for your teams, just to help everyone kind of get onboarded with thinking differently about how to solve the problems that you're setting out to solve. One caveat is that you do need to establish some boundaries. This is definitely a sensitive area. If boundaries aren't set up beforehand, things could get very ugly or messy. And Kat, I'm sure that you've been in some conversations about race, gender, ability.
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of
Yeah, where are you from? It's a big question I've gotten from a lot of people. I'm from Texas. Yeah, I'm
No,
from
but where are you
Kansas.
from?
Where
Like
are you
from,
from?
from.
Yeah,
The the
yeah.
favorite one is, what are you? And it's
What
like,
are you?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry?
American.
American?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So our rules and boundaries. And like, we don't want to do like yellow cards. Like, I don't want to have to go find yellow cards. There's a lot of stuff in this office. I probably couldn't find one anyway. But it's going to be to make tasteful suggestions. We did this assuming like, there will be like live audience people. These are boundaries that you can use with the teams that you have. And one really good thought process is to think primarily of your own lived experiences. For me, there was a time years ago, I was a admin assistant, and I didn't know like that you weren't supposed to do this with the phone permanently. I'm holding my shoulder to my ear, and I got swimmer's ear, and I could not hear out of my right ear. Kat, I know Donna talked about it a bit at the beginning, but you are having like a mobility impairment thing that's happening right now for you, right?
Yeah, back in April, I'm a gardener, and back in April, I was installing a garden path with Colorado flagstone. They're about 2 to 3 inches thick, so they're very big. And
Mm.
so I was doing repetitive lifting, and eventually I injured my rotator cuff on my left shoulder, and I basically bruised my bone marrow in my shoulder and ended up with frozen shoulder at this point. So I can't lift my arm above my head, and it's been very difficult to type on a daily basis. So just do coding and also just to do daily tasks. I can't reach behind my back, and I can't reach above my head. So it's definitely given me a newfound empathy for people that have to deal with that on a daily basis and have a permanent injury, especially. So yeah.
Yeah, lots of people assume like, you're either permanently disabled or you're not. And it's just like there's so many times in our lives where one thing could happen and it changes, sometimes permanently, sometimes not.
Absolutely.
We're also going to, uh, you also want to stay focused on information that you've learned from like a credible resource, right? Like, and uplift the experiences of people that you know personally, not maybe some headline that you've read on Facebook. I'm guilty of that sometimes, or just things like that. Try to stay focused on those actual experiences. Also, refrain from blanket statements. The reason why we're here is to lift the blanket on, like, here's this group and they all need this. Absolutisms don't help. Like, those are generally non-productive, they're non-starters, and they don't get to what we are all trying to do, which is to look at these systems as they exist, look at our users and what issues they have, and how we can help solve those problems. So we're going to go through the theory part, which is like group membership, and identify areas that accessibility and UX principles standards can address that group's needs. So practice, poverty. Let's give it about a minute and see if anybody in the chat like has any ideas about like what groups do you think face like, let's go with disproportionate levels of poverty, because all people like can experience it, right? But what are some groups that definitely are disproportionately impacted by this? I'm gonna look at my Fitbit.
We should have had some music ready.
I know. Like, I still haven't figured out how to pipe Zoom music through.
I can do some, is it Muzak? Is that what
Muzak,
it's called?
yeah.
Do 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 do
All
do
right.
do.
So let's move forward on these. So one of the first groups, like, that probably a lot of people would think, especially like because you and I, like two women of color, are on here, might be Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Some interesting stats on that. I'm a huge stats person. I'll try and keep it brief. This is talking about disproportionate inequality. So if you look at the percentage of people in the population and the percentage of people represented in impoverished groups, white people are 60% of the population in the United States, and they have 9% poverty rate. For Indigenous people, they are 1% of the population of the United States, but 24% of Indigenous persons are impacted by poverty. For Hispanic populations, they're 18% of the population. Sorry, my dog is here. Hispanic people are 18% of the population with a 19% poverty rate. And for Black people, or people who identify as Black, who identify as all the things that I said before, we are 12% of the population, and our poverty rate is 22%. So that's what we mean by disproportionate impacts. There are other groups. For the information for Asian and Pacific Islanders got smashed together, and it didn't extrapolate on East Asian, South Asian, so I won't be presenting that information, but there are going to be links in the slides, and we'll share those with you. Another group that people might not commonly think of are trans folks. There's a report by the Movement Advancement Project and Center for American Progress, and trans Americans are actually 4 times more likely to live in poverty than cisgender people. They're the homeless, and I won't dive into this one because we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but also people in rural areas. Rural poverty rates are reported at 16.4%. This was back in 2017. It decreased from 18.4%, which was like the 30-year peak 4 years before that in 2013. But it is higher than in urban areas, which had 12.9%. For people in rural areas, it has impacts in all areas of life, from things like internet access, access to resources, infrastructure, and availability of information and jobs. And one final group for this one is single parents. 27% of solo parents, so those are people living alone with kids, not necessarily based on marital status, they live in poverty. If there are cohabiting parents, like regardless of whether they're married or not, they are at 16% impact rates. Oh no, I put all the answers here. Let's see, April, Sarah. So I put all the answers out on this one. Let's go with membership group as far as older users and elderly persons. This one is particularly important to me. I worked for a retirement fund at the local level, and I would go to talks to learn more about like how I could better serve those users. So the ways that older users and elderly people are impacted, went to a talk by Jennifer Keen-Moore, and she made sure to emphasize that old people are not one persona. Like their experiences can range from like, so for people 65 and over, the poverty rate is 9.2%. That's in 2017. However, when you extrapolate that out amongst other groups, so like African Americans who are over 65, for men, there's a 16.1% poverty rate, and for women, it's 21.5%. That was pretty shocking for me. While it is a lower rate, due to the advent of like better medications and improvements in the medical system, there are more older people that exist now. And so that's a bigger cohort of people that we have to serve. There's also health and mobility, like different disability considerations. And like we covered, like your mobility can be impacted regardless of what your age is. But the W3 website for the Web Accessibility Initiative, they actually do have some considerations specifically for older users. You want to look at your core principles, which, Kat, if you can back me up, or actually check me, perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust.
There you go.
Yes.
So proud of you.
I'm studying for like the test, and I'm like, which one is it?
Got it.
Yeah. But I got so hyped I distracted myself. But there are all different ways that we can consider, the things that people face when they get older. There's actually a note on here that about timing. So making sure that you're not unnecessarily imposing timing restrictions on people. And I wrote, I am a person with an attention deficit, and so this impacts me. Also, I remember a couple months ago, I had to fill out a form, and it was on Eventbrite, and they had like a 9-minute timer that was on it. So I would start to work on it and then come back and go do something else, and I'd come back and the form expired. And it was a very long form, like without any kind of accommodations, and I would have to refill it out every time. So I get 3/4 of the way through and then get distracted and have to come back. Also keep in mind that when we have older users, they are often using older software. When I worked for the city, no one likes to have to develop for older browsers, but working on the help desk, I had every day to say, make sure to click on the little blue E, because that's how they get on the internet. That little blue E was the internet for a lot of people for a long time. My dad, I've graduated him to like the little colored circle for Chrome, but it took us a long time to get away from the little blue E.
I was actually going to write a book called The Big Blue E.
Oh.
Because when I worked at it was a joke, but yeah, when I worked at like a local government, there's so many times I told people, look for the big blue E when you're looking for the browser. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get to say, look for the little fox. That would have been nice.
Yeah.
Eye degeneration is an item that I was very shocked to learn about. There is a talk by, what is not here? Mike Hill, Seniors and UX, Designing for Baby Boomers and Beyond. He goes into the different ways that the human eye as we get older breaks down, and it impacts, like, I've just recently, like within like the last 5 years, started to experience floaters in my eyes, but different things like retinitis pigmentosa, cataracts, glaucoma, and diabetic retinopathy, that can change the way that your screen looks to someone that has those conditions, like whether they're older or not. And they're also likely to have a family member that's assisting them with tests. So there are 2 really great talks, one by Jennifer Keane Moore and one by Mike Hill that I've linked. Apparently, we're just going to go straight through them, and that's all right. So for the membership group, people of color, so in theory, it's like, all right, well, we're going to make this site for people of color. Like, what does that mean? If you examine this group and break it down, people of color tend to be heavy users of mobile technology. Don't have the statistic for that because I stopped myself from doing that one. Black, white, and Latino users do have roughly similar smartphone ownership levels when you go based on the same locale, around 8 and 10 for all groups. Those groups tend to be more reliant on mobile devices for internet access. So that's why we emphasize like mobile first in these discussions. Households are also less likely to have a computer in the home. I grew up with a computer in the home. Kat, did you?
I actually did.
Yeah.
My mom's a programmer, so.
Yeah. Some of the girls that I taught for Black Girls Code, though, like, oh yeah, my dad used to build computers, like, kind of like as a hobby. But like some of the girls that I work with, they're like, we don't have a computer at home. Like, we have a computer at school, but so you're not getting like that regular usage with it if you don't have a computer in the home. And if this is how they do devices, and that's what they do. The kids made fun of me because I'm not very great with my phone. They're like, how are you a web developer and you don't know how to use a phone? I'm like, these are two different skill areas. Please leave me alone. Uh, we People of color also tend to have multi-generational households. This applies for your core principles of accessibility. When we have I just gave an example of it, and you just talked about it. When we have people that are older that we're trying to work with and teach how to use these devices and how to interact with websites, you want to especially focus on understandable and robust experiences so that you're not having to fight the website at the same time that you're trying to educate a person or to get a resource for someone. And of course, as we discussed earlier, people who are disproportionately economically disadvantaged, your four principles, and mobile first. So this one has some that are not revealed. And I see that we do have some people in the audience. What are, maybe within 30 seconds, some ways that people could be systematically well, I gave it away. I'll go through. But we've got people of color continued, tend in the United States to be multilingual speakers, 2 or more languages, not like the way that I have it, because I'm just a really weird nerd. This applies to success criterions 3.1.1, which is the language of the page, and 3.1.2, which is the language of the parts. And differing access to educational institutions, potentially leading to different cognitive abilities. In plainer speak, right at your user's level. We know that people are impacted by the educational system differently. We're finding that out more and more every day. And if you were writing a website for somebody that works for, a city, they finished when they graduated from high school, and they just jumped into this job and they didn't pursue a higher education, you are not going to use like $5 words to explain, their benefits or things that are going on with them. That's doing your users a disservice.
And that really goes into thinking, if you're like a county, for instance, and you're thinking and writing from a department based, so you're thinking from you out versus from a user in perspective as well. So you got to think about how a user is going to come to your site and gather that information instead of you thinking about the way you are as a company, organization, or department putting that information out. And that's really important.
One of the issues that we had sometimes at the city was that we would think about the user experience on like our giant like screens, and in other city offices, even though they were also using desktops, they had like 1024 by 768. Like that was their resolution, and they couldn't change or install anything. So great ad there, Kat. So let's go back to looking at our mobile only or mobile internet as primary internet access users. In the interest of time and making sure that we have enough time for Kat to share all these tools with you. So the membership groups that are represented here, as we discussed earlier, Black, Indigenous, people of color, the homeless, which I promised y'all I would talk about a little bit later, and my statistic is gone right now, but as I recall, about 80 to 90% of the people who are homeless or unhoused do have a mobile device. They might not have service on it. It might be a prepaid service, but you know what they can use, Kat, to connect to the internet?
What is that?
Public Wi-Fi. And that's why a lot of cities have like, Wi-Fi initiatives that they engage in. The public libraries and public buildings here in Dallas give out access for people. We have robust environments to be able to serve people. So people who are homeless or unhoused, like don't necessarily not have access to information. And then young people, our wonderful young people. More and more, their phone is their only device. I know I have a friend who their job gives them a laptop to work on, and that's their computer. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean you don't have like a backup computer? Like, you don't have the internet when you don't have a company laptop? And like, yeah, it's cool. I have my phone. And I'm like, all right, I know now that I'm older than you. I guess we've got one more: slow internet speeds. So, people impacted by this and also no internet in the home tend to be our people who are impoverished, as we discussed earlier, poor folks. People in rural areas. So this one was actually very interesting to me. I talked to Kat about it when I was researching like the exact numbers. Roughly 2/3 of rural Americans have broadband internet connection in their homes. It was a, and this is back in 2000. Oh, back in 2019. I guess 2019 was just last year. It's hard to remember that. But in 2007, only 35% of rural communities had broadband internet connection in their homes. Mobile technology amongst rural adults also has risen. There are more people that have smartphones and tablets. Usually it's only one device, like they don't have multiple ones. And ownership of desktop and laptop computers has only gone up a little bit since 2008. I think we are going to end up talking on the other one. And this is actually where the homeless, unhoused one came up. It's 95% of people who are homeless have mobile phones and 80% have smartphones. And all of these categories and analysis that we talked about lead to a particularly poignant contemporary example: children who are doing homework during a pandemic. Don't have internet at home. I don't know if people are familiar with this. Description of this picture is that there's two kids sitting on a curb outside of a Taco Bell restaurant. The workers are coming out to check on them and see what's going on. They had assignments that they have to do during the coronavirus pandemic. And the parents were like, well, we know that there's Wi-Fi available at this restaurant, so we're going to let you connect to the Wi-Fi and do your homework. As the economy and our systems have shifted, like during this pandemic, we've been confronted with the flaws and the assumptions that we have in our systems. So just some more takeaways. There are sex considerations, and when I say sex, I'm discussing like someone's biological gene expression of sex traits. If I misspoke on that, I apologize and doing my best to learn it if there's a better way for me to say that. Typically, people who are assigned male at birth have higher rates of colorblindness. There's also gender role considerations. So caretakers, generally, these are people that are socialized as women, but it can also apply to any gender of people that are seeking info for someone in their care. There are flaws in our assumptions. The pandemic is showing us that, directly and in a way that we can't escape from, like we think that if we build the technology, people will come. It will always be there. But with the kids with the laptops, that's kind of like, okay, hey, a laptop for every child. But if you send them back home and get them away from the internet access that they have available to them only at the schools or only at public libraries, which are also shut down, it's kind of like building pipes without water. Also, making sure that we're helping people find the same information differently or in the method that they are most used to or that's most useful to them is really important. Like you can build a wonderful, shiny user experience, a wonderful website, and it might not be the final outcome that people want. This was that rural communities comment that I was talking about earlier, Kat. So a majority of the adults in rural communities that were surveyed by the Pew Research Center said that high-speed internet is not a major problem for their local community. This was back in May 2019, but you live in a rural community, right?
Yes, I do.
And like, do you feel the same way about that?
No, I mean, internet access out here is a big issue. We don't have, we don't have the best internet access, and the one company that is out here is a monopoly. So, they went down on Monday, for instance, and with more people working at home and kids being at home for school, that affected a lot of people. And it was very difficult. And there's no other options besides the one internet service company. So for us, that it's really difficult. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So there's other examples, but I am eating a lot of time. So the new question is, how do you solve for this gamut of issues? You can take step one, build room for the margins in your product from the beginning. That means taking the barriers into account. Learn how to resolve the situations that you've identified or been informed are disproportionately affecting the audiences that you're trying to serve. And I believe building products with accessibility standards in their core makes robust user experiences much easier. I'm like losing myself in the notes. There are a lot of notes. Kat, I know that you had some things to share about step 2. Would you like to share them?
Yeah, I'll quickly share because we're running out of time. So
Yeah.
I'll just say that, yeah, for me, an example of step 2 would be considering how how your product offsets marginalized situations and how those offerings can be expanded. For me, that would be an example would be when I worked at Douglas County, Kansas as a webmaster. I had a blind user call me about a form with date of birth fields that weren't working for him with his screen reader. And we worked together to go through those to solve that problem. And actually, since I was the webmaster and I was the only one working on that site, I was able to actually solve it and put it on the live site immediately. And he tested it and he was thrilled. And he ended up actually calling me county administrator and complimenting me on how I'd worked with him. And actually, for me, that I adapted my further development work after that experience because of that. And that was a great learning experience for me. So
that's so awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
And I guess step 3 is just to take this step by step. I feel like I'm more comfortable, Kat, like with you addressing this because it talks about like the different levels to achieve like certification, right? Does everybody need to go out and make a AAA accessibility website like right now? What even is a AAA accessibility website?
Yeah, AAA is, there's level A, which is a subset of level AA. It's the smallest. There's 25 criteria to meet and reach level A. So there's 3 levels. There's level A, there's level AA, and there's level AAA. You should shoot for the AA, and that one has 13 more criteria in addition to the 25 from level A. And this is the standard that most sites go to reach. And the AAA is great if you can try to reach it, but I would say that most sites that try to reach that standard are ones that are like have a lot of multimedia on their site. But it's not what is expected for your site to reach. So that's what I would go with, is just shoot for the level AA. And if you can go for the AAA, that's awesome, but don't trip too much if you can't reach it.
I'm wondering, do we want to go into some of our, I feel like we've shared like a bit of our like successes and like non-successes.
We could skip through these and then they can look those slides later.
So how are you going to do all this diversity, accessibility work, Kat?
I don't know. How am I? Oh, that's right. Magic. Just kidding. It's tools. So, okay. So
let's switch over to Kat.
Yeah. Let's try this. I can do this here.
I always forget like that when you get like into like talking about people's experiences, like there's so much to share and like get excited about. And I'm like, oh no, how is it already like 45 after?
Okay.
Maybe we'll make this like a trivia game next time. Change all the questions. Well, that's what a Mac looks like right now. That's neat.
Yeah. I hope I'm on the right one.
Yes.
Can you see right here?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that really big?
It's good.
Okay, good. Okay. So we're going to go over some tools to get you going. So first off, here is a screenshot of a talk I did called How Cool Accessibility Tools Can Make Your Life Easier. And this is a linked screenshot, so you can click on it and get to my full presentation. I'm just going to go over a really quick presentation or quick version of it. So let's see, there are 5 categories of ALI tools that we'll cover: web-based tools, browser tools, content management system tools or CMS tools, operating system tools or OS tools, and desktop tools. So the first group are web-based tools, and these are used exclusively online. It's best to bookmark these tools to make to your browser so that you can use them as needed. And great companies like DeQ, the Paciella Group, and WebAIM are always creating new open source tools, so it's important to keep your eyes open for new ones all of the time. The first group I'd like to go over are file compression tools. These tools help users with low bandwidth and those using mobile devices. You can add up to 20 files in multiple formats to compress them all at one time. Allowed file formats include GIF, JPEG, PDF, PNG, and SVG. You can download each file individually or use download all button to get them all in a zip archive. And this saves a lot of time for developers when the alternative is to open and compress files and something similar. Let's see if I can, I'm not sure how to get out of there.
And Kat, I had a question about the web bookmarklets because I know you talked to me about it before, and if you need, I can like go ahead and reshare.
Sure. Yeah, I think I'm good. Can you see this here?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this is the compression tool that I was talking about right here. So you can drag all of your different files and you can compress them, and then you can download them right here with this download button. So, and these are all of the different types of versions. And if you click on each one, you can see all the different things. So I'm not going to try to do it during this. So
all the files.
Pretty cool. So the next one I'm going to go over is the JavaScript bookmarklets for accessibility testing. So that's here. So there's tons. Let me pull this up. Can you see that okay?
I can.
So because these contain so many types of bookmarklets, these tools help all users when it comes to the accessibility of your site. There are several JavaScript bookmarklets available to check your accessibility of the page. And so I'm going to just test this with the ARIA version. So how you use this is you take this link here, you click on it, and you drag it up to your bookmarks like that. You can see it got added. And so if I go, I'm going to actually just do it on this page here. Actually, I'll click on it. And I can do a demo, and it says show ARIA info. And what it does is it shows all of the ARIA info for this page. So you can see, I can see the ARIA labeled by, the ARIA controls, the ARIA expanded, the ARIA hidden equals true. So you can go to any web page and you can view all of the ARIA information for that web page just by clicking this bookmarklet on that page. And so that's how that works. And each one of these bookmarklets does that same kind of thing for the different thing that it is. So if I go back, you can see there's one for images and forms and headings and tables and on and on. And these are great. So this is the demo page here, and this is the install link actually, and I should have done that one.
Oh, okay.
So,
but like you don't have to install it into the browser. Like you can just put the link and it'll go.
Yeah, you just put the link and it works. So if I just did the install link, which is what I should have done right there, and then I click it, it automatically works on this page, and I can go to any website and that'll work on the web page.
Neat.
So the next one would be the WebAIM color contrast simulator. So this one is where you can add hex values into each of the boxes easily. And I'll just put
real quick here. I know we're low on time, so I don't want to take long, but we've been getting some requests to please increase the size of your browser. It's pretty small for those of us on the other side.
Is that better?
Can you, if you can make it actually just stretch it out even more,
the
that
whole
would probably
thing
be
bigger.
better.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And 10-minute mark.
Okay. Sorry about that, everyone. So hopefully this is better. Okay, so let me know if it's not, and if I don't hear anything, I'll just assume it is. So this is, let me go back. So this is the JavaScript bookmarklets that I was mentioning earlier, and this is dragging it up here, and then clicking on it and seeing the items on the page.
Oh, it's showing us the bottom. Okay.
Yeah. So this is the WebAIM color contrast checker. If I went in here and I changed it to gray, so you can see that doesn't work, I can use the sliders to check the color contrast. And you can see right here, it changes and tells me if it passes right here. So this is normal text and this is large text. So this is at 18.66 and lower, and this is 18.66 pixels and higher with bold text. So this is very helpful when you're working with color contrast on a page. So let's see, browser tools, color blinding, ColorZilla, and WCAG color contrast checker, and then the ARC toolkit, Axe, and Lighthouse audit for Chrome DevTools. So I'll go ahead and let's escape out of there. I'll use these in my browser. So the color blinding is a tool, a Chrome add-on that you can check. Let me see if I can go. I'll go to Google and I can click on this tool and I can look at any one of the different versions, types of being colorblind with this. So that helps when you're testing out color contrast. The WCAG color contrast checker, you can see over here, it's pretty small, but it pulls up all of the color contrast issues on the page. If I click on this one in the bottom, it'll show this to me on the bottom. I don't think I can pull that.
Will it won't get any bigger? Oh, there we go.
There. And then I can change the color here and try to fix it. So I actually can change it and then fix that on the page as a developer. And then let's see what else I was looking for. The color, let me close this out.
Maybe the Axe tool?
The color picker. I can pick any element on the page and get the color off of it. This is good for when I have an image, like a slideshow and text in front of it. I use that to pick the color from the image to use then with this here to maybe put the text color for the foreground, and the background would be the color from the image to be able to adjust either the text color or adjust the overlay over a hero image or a slideshow for that. So I'm going to go over the ARC toolkit and the Axe and the Lighthouse next very quickly. I know we're running low. Let's see. Is that big enough? Hopefully. So I'll go over Axe first. I have Axe beta, their fuller version, but if you just go on this and I just analyze the page, this is their initial version where I can see that it requires ARIA attributes that need to be provided, and the page has that, and it gives me information with what the issue is and how to fix it, and I can click through to more details if I want to on each of these, which is pretty cool. And I can actually go to the element on the page, and then I can also save results. And then I'm not going to actually go through this whole process, but what you can do is you can actually manually check an entire web page with their beta check, which is really cool. It'll actually step through every single element on the page and do a manual check in addition to the automated check. I would highly recommend doing that. The ARC toolkit is here. So if I run the test on the page, it pulls everything over here. And as I click here, it'll highlight things on the page and tell me what the issue is and how to fix it right here. So that's pretty cool. And the final one I want to show is the Lighthouse. You can do performance, progressive web app, best practices, accessibility, and SEO. And when you generate the report for that, this is helpful. You can also do it on mobile and desktop. This is helpful for, besides just the regular accessibility, also finding out for like mobile users to make sure that your site loads well for people with mobile devices. So that would be obviously the progressive web app and the performance. So you get the scores and you get the details below and how to fix those elements. So that's really great. So let's see. So content management systems, I just want to say two top ones I would say would be Drupal Ally Tools and WordPress Ally Tools. I'll just leave the links on here. Won't go over too much, but and Mac has Ally Tools and Windows has Ally Tools. There's a lot of great features in each one of them, and I'll just leave those there. And document accessibility tools, there's Acrobat Accessibility Checker for PDFs. There's Google Docs have best practices, but they also have a Grackle add-on that you can add that checks for Google Docs, all the different types. Microsoft Office has Accessibility Checker. And then obviously you have the screen readers, JAWS, NVDA, which is free, and Orca. And that is it.
Awesome. So I guess like for us in summary,
let me switch back to you.
No, you're good. As technologists, like we should be holding ourselves and our dev communities accountable for things like good coding standards, right? And we do that on a daily basis. But we also should be holding ourselves accountable for implementing inclusion as well. Thankfully, you know, accessibility and usability give us ways to do both. Like by doing good accessibility and doing good user experience work, you're building a good foundation to be able to build these inclusive experiences for people. Like if you have to build out, like you have a platform from which to move. People have already done this work. One of the best principles of being a developer is don't repeat yourself, but you don't have to. Don't do it. We should take full advantage of that. And there are plenty of cool tools to help us accomplish that. I do suggest that you look at Kat's talk and look at all the resources that she has given us, because I'm really looking forward to that. But thanks so much.
Thank you both. We are so excited to have had glorious bots with us today. You're both wonderful, and I loved this presentation. It was so meaningful. And I know that I've been stealing some of the links and posting them in the YouTube chat as we go, as well as the fact that there's a couple tools that I had never heard of, and I'm so excited to have new toys to play with. Yay. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Because we're a little tight on time today, people, sorry, we're going to have to ask for you to ask questions on Twitter. So please hashtag A11yTalks. And we'll look and see what we can do there. Also, for those of you who are maybe watching this on YouTube later, we know there's a lot of other things going on. All good, just go ahead. Hashtag A11yTalks on your Twitter. Even if we're a few days behind or even a few weeks, depending on when you're on this, go ahead, let us know. We want to hear from you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Kat and Taryn, you guys, you both have been amazing. So thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. This is really exciting. It was cool to share.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
It was really our pleasure. All right, have a great day, all. Check us out on YouTube, on our website, and on Twitter, party people, and have a fantastic rest of your day.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.